Oral argument sa Korte Suprema at ang presko ni Auntie Claire ang ating pag-uusapan ho dito sa video na to. Pero bago yan, isang like at isang subscribe, masaya na ho tayo dyan. At sa mga gusto sumali sa ating community, yung join button, nandyan lang ho sa baba. Para sa mga kabataan natin, meron lang akong isang ituturo sa inyo na talaga mapapakinabangan nyo hanggang sa pagtanda nyo. No? Yung mga kwento-kwentong ganyan, paturo-turo ng ganyan, wala hong kwenta yan. Ito lang ang maipapayo ko sa mga kabataan. Huwag kayong magdroga, tapos ang usapan. Okay? Huwag kayong magdroga. Yun lang. Ito mga paturo-turo na ganito. Oy, by the way ha, dito kay Shani Angara. Kumusta na si Trigib Olivar? Kumusta na si Trigib? Yung mga di umanong pumipick up, kumukuha ng pera sa basement ng Diamond Hotel. Okay? Yang Shani Angara na yan, marami din hong katanungan sa mama na yan pagdating sa usapin ng mga maanomalyang flood control project. Hindi ko sinasabing involved siya. Tauhan ho niya yaan si Trigib Olivar. Ngayon, magkasama ho sila nitong si Marcos Jr. Nagtuturo sila sa mga kabataan na to. Ang masasabi ko lang sa mga kabataan na yan, huwag kayong mag-addict. Huwag kayong titikim ng ipinagbabawal na droga. Okay? Dahil sigurado, yung umpangan nyo, babaling kung saan-saan pag nagkataon. Yun lang. Walang anumang kwento ang ika nga makakatalo doon sa kwento ko na yon. Kasi ito, alamat ng bangag. Gusto nyo marinig yung alamat ng bangag? Para sa ating mga kabataan, gusto nyo marinig yung alamat ng bangag? O sa susunod na video, pag-usapan natin yung alamat ng bangag na yan. Unahin na ho muna natin itong si Auntie Claire. Presko niya ho ngayon kasi pinagtatalunan ho nila eh. Ito ho ngayon ang pinaka mainit na usapin ngayon sa mundo ng social media. Ito. Ayan ho mga kababayan. No? Ito ho. Kasi una na ho napabalita na sumuko. Hindi, kahapon pa lang, June 1, yung mga bali-balita na kusang susuko itong si Senator Jinggoy Estrada sa Sandigang Bayan. Hindi na kailangan ng arestuhan, hindi na kailangan ng kung ano pa mang kaartehan o drama. Ngayon mga kababayan, ang sabi ko kasi nitong si DILG Secretary John Vic Remulla, hindi sumuko si Senator Jinggoy. Inaresto namin siya. Maganda ang ginawa ni Senator Jinggoy na siya ay voluntaryong sumuko, hindi niya pinahirapan ang law enforcement. Alin ba talaga ang suma dito? 'Di ba? Sumuko ba si Senator Jinggoy o inaresto? Kung ano man ho ang katotohanan diyan, wala na ho tayong pakialam diyan. Ang importante, makasagot na itong si Senator Jinggoy Estrada kung ano man ang mga binabato sa kanya ngayong mga panahon na to. Ngayon, para dito sa dalawa na to, kung sino talagang, kung sino ang tama sinasabi, ayaan na ho natin na sabi. Yung mga malilit na detalye na sumuko, inaresto, wala akong kwenta yan. Ang pag-usapan natin, sino ang mastermind sa mga maanomalyang flood control project. Ito ang presko nitong si Auntie Claire. Teka lang ha, meron pa pala ho akong isang ipapakita sa inyo para talagang matapos nitong mga kalokohan ni Auntie Claire na to. Auntie Claire ha, namnamin mo lang to, itong slide na to para makita mo naman yung sinisiraan mo at yung pinagtatanggol mo. Pagtanggol mo na rin tong si Tutaso to, pati itong si Boji D para umayos-ayos ang kanilang net satisfaction rating. Kasi todo tanggol ho yung si Auntie Claire dito kay Marcos Jr. na may ginagawa, masipag, puro trabaho, di na natutulog, nagbabangod pala. Sabi ni Aimee. Ito na ho, Auntie Claire tayo. Yay!
May mga katanungan. Unang tanong mula kay Rafi Ayeng.
Walang
Daily
gana
Tribune.
si Auntie.
Hello.
Good
Morning, Yusek. With the
Cooks.
onset of the rainy season, nauuso na naman po ang sakit na dengue at isa ang Pilipinas sa may mataas na kaso ng dengue cases and deaths sa Asia Pacific. Are we expecting an approval of a dengue vaccine? In particular po yung inirecommend ng World Health Organization na Kidenga dengue vaccine manufactured by a Japanese company, Takeda.
Hindi, tayo?
Okay,
Dengbak siya tayo. Janet ka rin, pasok!
Meron pong ibinigay na mensahe at komento ang Department of Health patungkol po dito. Ayon po sa DOH, sinusuri pa ng Food and Drug Administration ang mungkahi ng aplikante para sa bakuna. Sabi kasi ng nailathalang datos, pinakamababa ang talab nung PAK 003 o Q-Denga sa mga batang 4 to 5 years old kumpara sa 6 years old pataas. Sabi rin kasi ng datos na hindi maisasantabi ang maaaring mas magkaroon ng malalang dengue serotype 3 sa mga nabakunahang hindi pa nagka-dengue dati. Sa ating bansa, dengue serotype 3 ang madalas na kumakalat. So abangan na lang po muna natin ang magiging tugon ng aplikante. Samantala, the World Health Organization itself in its position paper on dengue categorically states that vector control remains the main means for the control of dengue. Sa madaling salita, kapag walang lamok, walang dengue. Kaya mabisa ang kampanya na isinasagawa ng DOH sa pamumuno ng Secretary Herbosa na tuwing alas 4, ugaliin ang taob, taktak, tuyo, taki para kontra dengue. Sa katunayan, mas mababa ng 57% ang bilang ng dengue ngayong taon sa buong Pilipinas na 48,151 kumpara sa nakaraang taon na 110,924. So yun po ang mensahe ng DOH.
And in the relation naman po sa rainy season, is the government ready naman sa inaasahang pagbaha muli? At itutuloy ba ng Department of Public Works and Highways sa mga natenggang flood control projects kahit questionable ang mga ito?
Mismo si Secretary Vince Dizon po ang ating kinausap patungkol po dyan dahil nga nalalapit at lumalakas-lakas na rin po ang ulan na nararanasan natin ngayon. So ito po ang mensahe ni Secretary Vince Dizon. Tuloy-tuloy po ang paghahanda ng gobyerno para sa pagpasok ng tag-ulan. Hindi po pinapangako na hindi nababaha. Pero ang assurance ay nagtutulong-tulong ang mga concerned agencies to ensure na mas mabilis humupa ang tubig baha at siguruhin hindi ito natetenga ng matagal katulad ng dati. Yan po ang isinasagawa sa utos ni Pangulong Marcos Jr. kaugnay na rin sa Oplan kontra baha. Sa katunayan, may mga nakita na tayong positive effects sa mga lugar
Yan,
within
positive
Metro
effects,
Manila
yan.
na ginawa na
Positive effects. Doon tayo sa positive effects.
natin ng intervention. Kabilang dito ang drainage improvements sa G. Araneta Avenue papuntang E. Rodriguez. Yung mga residente doon ay nagbigay na po at nagsabi ng positive feedback dahil nung nag-uulan ay mas tuloy-tuloy na ang pagbagsak ng ulan sa mga drainage na dati ay naiipon at siyang nagiging dahilan ng lagpas taong baha sa lugar. Ganon din sa A. Bonifacio Avenue at Taft Avenue. Natapos na rin po ang drainage improvement projects at naibalita na rin na mabilis bumaha pero humupa ang tubig sa Taft Avenue at UN Avenue. Tuloy-tuloy din ang dredging activities. Hindi rin tumitigil ang DPWH since November 2025 na mag-clearing at declogging ng mga waterways. Mabilis din nade-deploy ang DPWH ng mga maintenance crew sa mga lugar na binabaha nito mga nakaraang araw. So sa mga natetenggang proyekto naman ay tuloy-tuloy pa rin po at priority ito na tapusin ng DPWH.
Sunod na tanong mula kay Samuel Medinilla, Business Mirror.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Kung hingi lang po kami ng update kung may ongoing investigation pa rin po yung DPWH doon sa mga flood control project anomalies na na-disclose ni President last year po.
Sa ngayon po, nakausap din po ulit natin si Secretary Vince at sinabi po nila na ang kanilang mga na-sumiti or rather na nag-gather na facts ay isinabinti na po sa Ombudsman. So sa ngayon po, ang Ombudsman po ang patuloy na nag-iimbestiga dito. At of course, kung may makikita pa rin po silang iba pa na mga proyektong hindi gumagana, ito naman po ay kanilang iimbestigahan pa rin.
Pero clarify ko lang po, wala po silang nakitang existing na flood control projects na anomalies po. Flood control project anomalies. Bukod po dun sa nasubmit nila dun sa Ombudsman.
Sa ngayon, wala silang binigay sa ating update dahil ang mga na-gather nila ay isinumite na sa mga investigating bodies.
Tapos, yung pong na-inform na po ba si Pangulo dun sa info na yun dun sa flood control projects? Kung na-inform na po si Pangulo.
Hindi po naibigay sa atin Sec Vince kung siya ay nag-report, pero definitely naman bilang Cabinet Secretary, nagre-report naman po siya sa Pangulo. But kung anong particular na i-report po ni Secretary Vince ay wala po tayo sa ngayon na detalye.
Thank you po.
Sunod na tanong mula kay Katrina Domingo, ABS-CBN.
Undersecretary, ano po yung posisyon ng Malacanang doon sa proposal ng Bureau of Immigration para maningil ng around 240 pesos para sa mga travelers na lalabas o papasok ng Pilipinas para po doon sa sinasabi nilang upgrade sa kanilang mga ginagamit na systems sa immigration?
Sa ngayon po ay ito'y proposal pa lamang po according to Commissioner Joel Anthony Viado. So wala pa po itong anumang desisyon, wala pa pong nararating ito. Ito ay mere proposal. So wag po muna mag-alala ang ating mga kababayan dahil mas nauna po talaga silang mag-react. Wala pa po ito.
Pero what is the position of the palace? Is the palace supportive of this proposal or does the palace think that it is necessary given the time na mas mahal po yung pagbiyahe sa within the country or outside the country?
Alam naman natin po kung ano po ang layunin nito. Ang layunin nito ay magkaroon ng mas ligtas at mas modernong border control system. Ngunit dapat itong maisakatuparan sa paraang malinaw, makatarungan at may tiwala ang publiko. Yan po ang sinasabi ni Commissioner Viado. But still, ito po ay nasa stage pa ng pag-aaral, kaya wala pa pong stance ang Pangulo patungkol dito.
Ma'am, just your point of view, the Bureau of Immigrations under the 2026 proposed budget enjoys a budget of, kunin ko lang po yung exact amount. More or less, they have, nawala po yung figure, pero more or less, mayroon po silang millions already in funds for their capital outlay as well as their other expenditures. On top of that, nag-privatize din po yung NAIA, pati yung ibang major airports sa Pilipinas. Bakit po kailangang singilin sa taxpayers itong additional upgrades for immigration systems when this isn't already included in the national budget?
Kaya nga wag natin munang pangunahan, inaaral pa po. So wag muna tayo
Huwag natin paunahan.
ay maalarma, wala pa po ito.
Hindi, last na ma'am, for my end, hindi po nakikita ng Malacanang yung glaring question kung bakit kailangan mag-propose ng ganito in the first place when this is already funded by taxpayers' money.
Kaya nga po, proposal pa lang.
Proposal
so pwedeng
pa lang.
barilin, pwedeng hindi ipatupad, pwedeng hindi matuloy. So kaya wag muna tayo maalarma dahil wala pa po talaga to. It's just a proposal.
Sunod na tanong mula kay Left Narciso, DZRH. Microphone.
Good afternoon, Yusek. Ma'am, ipinababasura na ni Vice President Sara Duterte yung articles of impeachment laban sa kanya. I understand that the palace's position on the impeachment is non-interference. Pero considering po yung mga lumabas na impormasyon sa determination of probable cause sa Kamara, ano po ang masasabi ng palasyo sa claim ng kampo ni VP Sara na, and I quote, none of the allegations sufficiently established the constitutional standards for culpable violation of the Constitution, bribery, graft and corruption, high crimes, or betrayal of public trust?
Unang-una po lumalabas dito sa kanyang naging tugon, hindi niya po dininay. Walang outright denial ng akusasyon, mga akusasyon
Iyon.
sa kanya.
Iyon.
Katulad po ng di umanong paglustay ng confidential funds, pagbabanta sa buhay, lalong-lalo na sa buhay ng Pangulong Marcos Jr., pagtanggap di umano ng pera mula sa mga drug lords at mga unexplained wealth. Lumalabas sa kanyang tugon ay hindi niya to dininay. At ang ginamit lamang niya na depensa ay mere technicalities. Bakit daw naipalabas o papaano nakuha ang mga ebidensyang ito? So ito rin po yung dati niyang ginamit na tugon sa House of Representatives, sa Committee on Justice. Mas maganda po sana na mas maipaliwanag niya sa taong bayan itong mga inaakusa sa kanya
Hintay tayong trial. Huwag masyado magmadali, ha, ante?
rather than using mere technicalities to have the complaint be dismissed. So, abangan na lang po natin dahil nasa kamay na po ito ng mga senator judges kung i-dismiss nila outright, forthwith, nang hindi nakikita ng taong bayan yung mga nais makita na ebidensya. Kung makiklear naman po ang Vice Presidente sa pamamagitan ng mga ebidensya at ito'y madidinay niya, mas maganda pong maklear niya yung pangalan niya at maipaliwanag niyang walang katotohanan lahat yung mga inaakusa sa kanya rather than using mere technicalities.
Yeah.
Ibig po bang sabihin niya na kapareho po yung pananaw ng palasyo dun sa resulta naman ng survey ng Okta Research na 74% ng mga Pilipino ay pabor na ituloy ang impeachment trial?
Kahapon ay sinagot po natin yan. Kung ano man po ang resulta ng survey, mataas man, mababa, ang kailangan po dito ay accountability, transparency, lalo na kung ikaw ay isang public servant. Pero muli, nasa kamay ito ng Senado at hindi po makikialam ang Pangulo sa mangyayari sa Senado. Taong bayan na lang po siguro ang maging mapanuri at magmasid kung ano mangyayari sa Senado.
Sunod na tanong mula kay Ivy Reyes, Bilyonaryo.
Hi, Yusa. Good morning. Yusa, can we confirm this information that Vietnamese President Todd Lam reportedly skipped and canceled his Senate visit due to the recent events in the chamber, which we know caught international attention?
Hindi po siguro manggagaling sa amin ang tugon patungkol dyan. Mas maganda po siguro kung mismo ang pamahalaan ng Vietnam ang magsasabi ng kanilang tugon kung hindi man sila natuloy sa pagbisita sa Senate office.
But from the President's Japan trip to Vietnam state visit, was domestic politics a concern raised by our ASEAN neighbors?
Again.
Was domestic politics a concern raised by our ASEAN neighbors?
Sa Japan,
In the visit of Vietnam?
hindi po siya naging issue.
Sunod na tanong mula kay Tristan Nadalo, Newswatch Plus.
Hi, Yusek. Good afternoon. Initially, Malacanang welcomed the idea of Senator Jinggoy Estrada's voluntary surrender. But as the situation unfolded yesterday, you have DILG Secretary John Vic Remulla clarifying that the senator was arrested and did not surrender. There was also a video showing heated exchanges between Secretary Remulla and Senate President Alan Peter Cayetano. So for Malacanang, matatawag ba nating arrest o surrender ang ginawa kay Senator Jinggoy? And how do you view yung pagpasok po sa eksena ni Senate President Alan Cayetano sa pag-aresto po ulit kay Senator Estrada?
Unang-una po, nais nating bigyang linaw ito. Nung nagsalita po kasi si Senator Jinggoy Estrada, sinabi niya na siya ay magvo-voluntary surrender. Pero lumalabas po, ayon na rin po kay Secretary John Vic Remulla, nandun na po sila sa Senado to serve the warrant of arrest. So mag-aaresto na po sila at humingi na lamang po ng pagkakataon itong si Senator Jinggoy na kung siya ay maaari pang magbigay ng statement. So in other words, nauna po ang pagsisilbi ng warrant of arrest bago sa kanyang press con ni Senator Jinggoy Estrada. So matatawag po itong pag-aresto dahil hindi po voluntaryong pumunta
Yan.
si Senator Jinggoy Estrada mismo sa mga law enforcers, hindi pumunta sa CIDG, sa PNP, o sa korte sa Sandigan Bayan. So tama po ang pananaw ni Secretary John Vic na hindi po ito voluntary surrender kung hindi pag-aresto. At yung tungkol kay Senator Alan Cayetano, makikita niyo po na sa eksenang yon, hindi po ibinibigay ng kusa dahil hawak po literally ni Senator Alan Cayetano si Senator Jinggoy Estrada. At nagkaroon lamang ng pagpipigil itong si Secretary John Vic. Pinigilan niya na makalabas
Mm.
si Senator Jinggoy Estrada. In other words, wala pa sa kustodiya nila na matatawag itong si Senator Jinggoy habang nakikipagtalo si Senator Alan Cayetano.
Yeah.
So, yung voluntariness was negated sa mga ganong akto.
Mm.
But can we consider that po as obstruction of justice?
Hindi naman siya obstruction of justice, di naman niya tinago, nagkataon lang na pinipigil niya dahil siguro iniisip niya siya ang Senate President, nasa lugar niya siya, at ang sinasabi nga niya ay this is not for Senator Jinggoy but for the institution.
Last na lang po. So dahil po nangyari yung pag-aresto kay Senator Jinggoy, wala rin pong nangyaring sesyon kahapon. And the Senate minority calls it a boycott of duty because they don't see yung pag-aresto po kay Senator Estrada as a justifiable reason not to hold session dahil may mga responsibilidad pa rin po sila. Given kung magpapatuloy po yung ganitong pangyayari sa Senado, how is this affecting yung, syempre po yung pagpupush ng mga legislative priorities ng administration and yung mga trabaho rin po nila dapat para sa taong bayan?
Katulad din po na sinabi ko noong mga nakaraang araw, sa parte po ng Pangulo, sa parte po ng Ehekutibo, wala pong magiging issue. Kahit sino po ang leader sa Kongreso, makikipag-ugnayan, makikipag-cooperate ang Ehekutibo para lamang maipasa ang mga priority bills para sa taong bayan. Ang Pangulo po ay hindi isipin ang sarili, hindi isipin ang sariling interes. So iyan po ang itanong natin sa Senado dahil tama po, hindi naman po kinakailangan na hindi magtrabaho kahapon dahil maski na po ang paghatid at pagsama kay Senator Jinggoy Estrada bilang kaibigan.
Pag nag-walkout yung minority, okay lang. Pero dahil merong nangyaring problema dyan sa Senado, hinuli si Senator Jinggoy Estrada, ngayon kini-question yung di pagpasok ng mga taga
Ay nararapat lamang.
Pambihira.
Pero hindi po kinakailangang talikuran ang sariling mandato
Yan.
para lang
Sariling mandato
sa
tayo.
ganitong klaseng issue.
Yun yung sinasabi ko.
Follow-up question mula kay Lizelle Pardilla, PTV.
Good morning po, Yusek. Yusek, Senate President Cayetano insisted not to implement the warrant of arrest within the Senate premises, pero nangyari pa rin po. Would it set a possible precedent for possible future arrests sa mga senators to be carried out within the Senate if necessary, kahit po na pinapalaga ng Senate leader sa ngayon?
Unang-una po kasi, alam naman po nila na kapag ang isang crime na kung ang isang senador ay involved sa isang crime at may warrant of arrest at ang crime na to, ang penalty ay maaaring imprisonment of more than 6 years, alam nila na pwede itong arestuhin. So, hindi po nga kailangan na sila ay humadlang, mas magandang makipag-cooperate sila sa mga law enforcers. Yun po ang tamang proseso at yun po ang may paggalang sa bawat institusyon.
Follow-up question, Ivan Mayrina, GMA7.
Ma'am, sa statement na inilabas ni Senate President Cayetano, he is framing this issue as a battle for Senate independence. Ang implication po nito, may pakikialam ang executive, ang Malacanang, sa affairs ng Senado. Your statement,
Yeah,
please.
that's why. Senate independence. Independence from what? Ano ba ang pinapalagan ni Senator Alan Cayetano? Saan ba nakialam ang Pangulo? Tama lamang po na i-serve ang valid warrant of arrest. Ang ibig po ba niyang sabihin kapag nagsisilbi po ng valid warrant of arrest sa Senado, sa mga itong klaseng crimes, ay dapat hindi isilbi? So yun ang tanong. So papaano magkakaroon ng pagtutulungan, kooperasyon, ang bawat sangay ng gobyerno kung merong magmamataas, merong hindi tutupad sa batas, at merong maghahari-harian? Hindi pwedeng ganun. Lahat po dapat patas.
Sunod na tanong mula kay Left Narciso, DZRH.
Ma'am, dahil apektado nga yung trabaho sa Senado, 2 araw na lang po bago yung adjournment ng Kongreso, may hinihintay ba ang palasyo na priority bills na dapat maaprubahan mula sa Senado?
Sa ngayon, alam naman po natin kung ano yung mga priority bills, hindi lang 2, hindi lang 1, hindi lang 3, marami po. Pero kung ganito po nangyayari sa Senado, mahihirapan po talaga. Hindi lang mga Pangulo, kundi ang taong bayan. Apektado ang taong bayan dito. Pati po ang ekonomiya ay maaapektuhan sa ingay at gulo sa Senado.
Last question mula kay Eileen Taliping. Abante tonight.
Good afternoon, Yusek. Confirmation lang po dun sa lumabas na balita na meron ng bagong chief, ang PTV4. Meron na po ba?
Siguro magbibigay ako ng announcement sa mga susunod na oras
Oras.
o araw.
How about PBS and NIB? Meron na bang bagong epe?
Magbibigay po ako ng announcement. Sa akin din po niyo ito madidinig.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Wala nang tanong mula sa Malacanang Press Corps. Dumako tayo sa regional.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Madam Solicitor General. Okay. Madam Solicitor General, from your opening statement and all through your responses to the relevant questions of the court so far, you have consistently invoked the wisdom of Congress in the enactment of the budget, which, according to you, is a political question, hence beyond the reach of judicial review. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, thank you very much. So what do you mean by the wisdom of Congress in the enactment of the budget?
Your Honor, the position of the Republic is that although we recognize the expanded judicial power of the Supreme Court, which is different from the U.S. Legal framework, because in our Constitution, we have explicitly expanded the judicial power, and that we recognize that there could also be a review if there has been grave abuse of discretion. It is our position that we will still have to look at the Constitution if there are textually demonstrable standards by which an act of a co-equal branch should be evaluated. Otherwise, we believe that the Supreme Court also, in many of its decisions, have given much respect and deference to co-equal branches when the power has been constitutionally provided to that co-equal branch, such that the power of the purse being given to the Congress will then have to be delimited also only by what has been constitutionally provided.
Very well, Madam Solicitor General. So it is your position that the invocation of wisdom standing alone is not a magic wand that compels the court to desist from reviewing a case where constitutional issues are involved.
Your Honor, that the position of the Republic is that we would support that statement.
Yes. So wisdom is the ability to use one's accumulated knowledge, experience, and deep understanding to make sound judgments, good decisions, and act appropriately. Can you cite specific cases where the court deferred to the wisdom of Congress in the enactment of the GAA? And for what reason, and for that reason alone, desisted from reviewing questioned items in the GAA, even though the constitutionality of these items was challenged before the court?
Your Honor, may I confer with my team just to be able to identify
Yes,
a
please.
specific case? Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Oo.
Your Honor, with regard to the specific issue of GAA, we don't have a specific case now. We are able to, I'm able to remember like Tañada versus Angara, where there were pronouncements by the court that if there is unconstitutionality, if there is an allegation of unconstitutionality with regard to an act of a co-equal branch, the Supreme Court will give much respect and deference. I would also be reminded of the standard of proof that was enunciated by Justice Zalameda in the municipality of San Mateo versus Smart Communications, where Justice Zalameda said that if there is an allegation of unconstitutionality, the standard of proof is that the petitioners should prove beyond reasonable doubt. And it is a corollary principle to the presumption of constitutionality by a co-equal branch. And Your Honor, with your indulgence, if we may be allowed to submit a case to research on a specific GAA case to answer your question.
Please do that, Madam Solicitor General.
Thank you,
In
Your
the
Honor.
cases that you cited, did the court defer to the wisdom of the executive in sustaining the validity or constitutionality of a specific law? Or is it because the petitioners failed to master the quantum of evidence required?
In the municipality of San Mateo, Your Honor, it's the second one that the petitioners failed, and which is also our position in this case, that the petitioners have not alleged or have not discharged the burden of proof that is imposed upon them.
Yes, that's true. So, the invocation of wisdom alone is not enough. If we examine the cases of the Supreme Court, deferring to the wisdom of the political departments of the government, it is only because the invocation of wisdom, or the principle that we must respect the wisdom of the political departments, is just an aside. It's just an additional ground. And it's never cited as the lone ground in sustaining the constitutionality of a questioned law or issuance. Do you agree?
Your Honor, I would agree that since the 1987 Constitution, the political question, in fact, has been really set aside because of the expanded judicial power. Your Honor, in my notes, because I also am remembering a case which is Tañada versus Angara, but this is not a GAA case. This was about the WTO, but when I read it, I noted it down as a note for the Supreme Court not reviewing the wisdom. This is by Chief Justice Panganiban, and there were excerpts where the Supreme Court said that the responses to the questions on whether entering the WTO would bring more prosperity, employment, purchasing power, that they involve judgment call by our policymakers for which they are answerable to our people during appropriate electoral exercises. And if I may, Your Honor, it went on to say, again, referring to the burden of proof, it said that we find no patent and gross arbitrariness or despotism by reason of passion or personal hostility in such exercise, which we believe, Your Honor, is the standard for grave abuse of discretion. So I agree, Your Honor, political question, we won't stop at the issue of whether it is a political question because the Supreme Court would have the power to determine if there has been grave abuse of discretion. And it is just our submission that then the Constitution we will still look at the Constitution if it has provided for the parameters by which the Honorable Court will have to evaluate. Otherwise, if there are no textually demonstrable standards, then that means that in certain powers which have been lodged constitutionally by the constitutionally to the other co-equal branches, then the judiciary will be given a special position to supplant its policy or wisdom on powers that were given constitutionally to the other branches.
Madam Solicitor General, the court doesn't supplant. The court nullifies or sets aside, but never supplants its wisdom over the wisdom of the political departments. That is not the role of the judiciary.
I submit, Your Honor, I say it without intention to put in a negative light. I might have misappreciated, Your Honor.
It's all right,
We submit, Your Honor.
Madam Soljan. That's well taken. So, I'd like to stress that the case that you mentioned, Municipality of San Mateo versus Smart, is a division case. First division, where Justice Alameda sits as a member, as a senior member at that. So, are you still invoking it?
Your Honor, I have in my notes also, because the Municipality of San Mateo is just one. If I may go to my notes, Your Honor, to be able to share the other cases.
Actually, you may invoke it because the Chief Justice also sits as chair in that division.
It's a decision, so it's okay.
Yes.
Because the division is part of the Supreme Court
Yes,
itself.
of the law of the land.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right. So, on the other side of the fence, can you please cite specific cases where the court nullified specific items in the GAA for being unconstitutional, notwithstanding the government's invocation of wisdom on the part of its political departments, such as the executive and the legislature?
Your Honor, I think it's the Belgica versus Ochoa, where was it the Countryside Development Fund? Alin ba yung CDF? Alin yung PDAF? The Belgica, in the Belgica case, the Supreme Court nullified the PDAF for its undue delegation to the legislature. It's a post-enactment intervention by the legislature in choosing which are the programs to be funded, and there was also a provision of a certain amount to legislators after the legislation, which stage is given to the executive, but the legislature was in fact given the power to interfere.
Yes, very well, Madam Solicitor General. I was hoping you would mention the PhilHealth, where you did not file a motion for reconsideration. And the Filipino people thank you for that.
And of course, I thank also the Supreme Court for the wisdom in that case, Your
Yes.
Honor. Thank you.
And we did not supplant the wisdom of the executive and
Yes,
the
Your Honor.
legislature. In the DBM's website, unprogrammed appropriations are defined as those which provide standby authority to incur additional agency obligations for priority programs or projects when revenue collection exceeds targets and when additional grants or foreign funds are generated. What do you mean by standby fund? From your understanding.
Standby appropriations, Your Honor, mean that the triggers are identified, and if and when the trigger is met, therefore, the programs, activities, and projects will then can then be funded. So it is contingent on the realization or on the existence of the triggers.
Yes, so it is ready or held in reserve, correct?
No, Your
Held in reserve. That is how the dictionary defines it. It is ready for use. Is that correct? Or we don't agree with the dictionary's definition?
No, Your Honor, because there is yet no fund, and it is dependent on the meeting of the targets and if there will be an excess in the target.
Yes, so there is reservation but no funds. Correct? Yes, even though we have not collected yet, we're reserving the funds already.
Yes, so to speak, Your Honor. So
Yes.
if it will happen, then that fund will can be used for the unprogrammed appropriations.
So if it doesn't happen, there will be no standby funds.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. All right. So does standby funds necessarily connote an emergency which is not covered by the programmed appropriations?
Your Honor, if I may clarify, I don't remember that we defined or we used the term standby fund,
No,
but it's
only DBM does. Only DBM does in its website. So you're debunking the definition of DBM?
Your Honor, I remember in our briefings that we were discussing standby appropriations. I remember them sharing with me the definition of a standby appropriation, but not a standby fund. If I may be corrected, Your Honor, we have the representative from the DBM, if it would be okay with you if I could
please.
clarify and be
Yes.
corrected also.
Okay, what is meant by standby fund? Do we have a special definition that is contrary to the ordinary meaning of standby funds?
Your Honor, so also my team confirms that our understanding is there's no reserve fund, but it is
There is no reserve
there's
fund.
no reserve fund.
But only earmarked.
Okay, the reason why I hesitated and paused, Your Honor, is that when earmark, it is my understanding that there should be real funds that are there, but in this case, it is conditional. There is no
Correct.
fund yet.
Conditional reserve. You can say that it's a conditional reserve. So if it is generated, so be it. If there is no generated fund, there is no reserve. Reserve is just an abstract, right?
Yes, Your Honor, I would agree with your explanation, Your Honor.
All right. So it's, ma'am, yes. Yes, please.
Magandang umaga po.
Magandang umaga sa'yo.
I am Andrea Magtalas po from the DBM.
Opo.
For clarification po, the DBM defines unprogrammed appropriations that as they provide standby authority for the agencies to incur additional agency obligations for priority programs and projects.
Yes.
So we confirm that definition, but we clarify humbly that it would be the authority, the authorization of the legislature, and the appropriation that is on standby, and the funds are merely earmarked.
So, standby does not mean to be incurred, there must be an emergency. There must be an urgency. That is the meaning of standby. As far as DBM is concerned.
As far as DBM is concerned, the authority granted by the legislative through the unprogrammed appropriations is a standby appropriation, which allows us, if triggers are met, the existence of the triggers are certified, to release the allotment necessary for the agencies.
So we're not speaking of any urgency. We're not speaking of any emergency when we provide unprogrammed appropriation.
The unprogrammed appropriations as legislated would be dependent on the priority programs and projects not covered by the programmed appropriations and are deemed necessary, such as foreign assisted projects that do not yet have final loan agreements, which could happen during the fiscal year.
All right. So on one hand, we have deficit, budget deficit. Is the funding of the deficit certain? Or it also depends on whether we could generate the funds to cover the budget deficit?
When the DBM submits, when the executive submits through the DBM the budget, BESF, Budget of Expenditure and Sources of Financing, there is an anticipated level of deficit. We are working on a deficit.
Yes, correct.
budget.
So anticipated deficit. And do you have anticipated sources for this deficit?
Yes.
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 Pretty much like unprogrammed appropriation. Unprogrammed appropriation is another form of deficit. Correct? Because there are no existing funds. But we are providing the programs and projects because we anticipate funding. Correct? Yes?
Honor, may I be allowed to
Yes,
answer?
please, Solicitor General.
It is our position that the unprogrammed appropriations are not deficit-inducing. In fact, they are generally neutral because the sources of funds are identifiable, contingent. If there is excess,
Yes.
then the source of fund will be ready, and therefore it should not produce a deficit because the source of fund is identified.
Yes. So, I don't disagree with that. I fully agree. And I would like to emphasize again that the contingency funds that will cover the deficit on one hand, all right, is the status of the deficit to be covered by funds that the government may or may not be able to raise is similar to the nature of the funds that we will raise still in the future to cover unprogrammed appropriations. That is the similarity that I would like to emphasize. Correct? The uncertainty, the contingency, they're both non-existent when the GAA was enacted. Do you agree?
Your Honor, if I may, with regard to the deficit target, it is our understanding, and please correct me, ASEC Angel, that that the target is planned, discussed, deliberated on. Okay, so meaning the BESF will include all the sources of financing, and the financing could be local borrowings or foreign borrowings. And the DBCC, and in their discussions, there is in fact a target that they wish to be within and not breach.
Yes.
And all of those, based on the BESF, will be observed in the operations of the government. And that's why it is our position that since it has been planned as well, it's usually a range. I think it's a 5% to 7% deficit target, which is a big amount. And therefore, even the borrowings go already into the equation of meeting that deficit target. Now, in regard to the unprogrammed appropriations, if I may make a delineation, a respectful delineation of excess and surplus, because what the UAs are based on would be an excess in the collection of the revenue target and not surplus, which surplus they have been trying to explain to us this technical term. Surplus would refer to the definition revenue. You spend more than you earn.
Yes.
You earn more
More
than
than you
you
spend.
spend.
All right.
That is surplus. So the expenditure is in the equation of a
Yes.
surplus, while in the excess, it just pertains to the excess in the collection.
Yes, that's very well explained, Madam Solicitor General. But it doesn't deviate from my point that the funds intended to cover the deficit are still uncertain, whether they may actually be raised on one hand. On the other, the UAs. The UAs also have no funding, but we have triggers. And whether we will be able to achieve funding from these triggers, or whether the triggers themselves may even occur, is uncertain. That is my point, the uncertainty of both funding for the deficit and funding for the UAs. All right, I will go to my other point. Yes, you are excused, ma'am. Thank you. So, we cannot liken from your definition of standby funds. Standby funds is not for emergency, it's not for any urgent projects of the government. Okay. But do you say that the programmed appropriation, the projects or programs under this category are urgent and matters of emergency?
Your Honor, the unprogrammed appropriations, the PAPs, projects, activities, programs, are not, I would not describe them as emergency, because the programmed appropriations would have the contingent fund. Meron ba emergency fund? Emergency fund sa programmed appropriation? Or there's the calamity fund and the contingent fund, which are all in the programmed. The unprogrammed appropriations are also PAPs that are deemed important by the executive and the legislature, but because of the limited fiscal space, they are, I think, forced to put them in the unprogrammed appropriations and wait for excess in the collection of their committed
All right.
revenues.
So, there are no urgent projects under the programmed appropriation.
Your Honor, there could be, but it is not a the essential characteristic of the unprogrammed appropriations, because, for example, the foreign assisted projects, from the executive point of view, will then be urgent. There is a timing dimension to it. I think that if the executive does not foresee it being approved right away, then it goes to the UA and not the programmed appropriation because of the timing.
All right, so there are also urgent and emergency projects under the UAs.
There could be, Your Honor, like the
Yes.
FAPs.
Okay, so it's not correct to say that the UAs cover non-emergency or non-urgent projects?
Yes, Your Honor, I would not describe it as a common descriptor to all, but
Yes.
they are important to the executive.
Important but not urgent, not emergency.
Not emergency.
Okay,
Your Honor.
while the programmed projects are a mix of urgent and non-urgent.
The programmed appropriations, we could say that, Your Honor.
Yes? All right. So actually, they can overlap, right? Yes?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. So they can be moved from unprogrammed, though it is urgent, it can be moved to unprogrammed. And unprogrammed can be moved to programmed.
Yes, Your Honor. I think that was also what happened. And how it was explained to us is that, again, in reference to the two-envelope framework that the executive has been guided through the years, that the funding for the appropriations that are meant for the operations of the government would be the programmed, and those that the legislature can live with without those programs because it is contingent on the happening of the triggers, then
Are moved to unprogrammed.
would go to unprogrammed,
Yes.
Your
So
Honor.
in terms of hierarchy of value, all right, the programmed priorities, programmed appropriation is on top.
Yes, Your Honor, that is correct. And in fact, also the effect is that after being included in the GAA, it already automatically, as a general rule, will have a GAAW, the allotment order. While the UAs, you will have to go through the SARO approval and a certification from the Bureau of Treasury that there is the existence of the excess
Yes.
funds.
So the standby fund may or may not be realized.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. So we cannot. Can you liken the standby fund to a generator, which switches on automatically or manually once there is brownout?
There is the comparison, Your Honor, in the sense that if there's a trigger, an event that will trigger its happening,
The trigger
then
is
it's
the
correct.
brownout
Yes, Your Honor.
and the availability of the generator.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. So in that sense, is it a standby generator?
Yes, Your Honor,
Yes.
it's a generator.
To provide current or light where the regular supply runs out. Correct?
Your Honor, that last description, it's actually exceeding the collection. So it doesn't run out, but the executive has exceeded its targets.
Even though in the meantime, the budget deficit has not been fully covered.
Your Honor, it's the point that we hope to clarify. So again, and maybe if okay with you to ask for the expertise of our budget secretaries, because it is our understanding that the deficit is actually, there is a lot of intention to it and deliberateness as to what will be the source, how much will be borrowed, and that's already, they have a formula and they have an equation for it.
It's all right. I will go to my next question. So you speak of priority programs or projects. Okay. Can you cite examples of priority programs or projects that were included in the unprogrammed appropriations of 2024, 2025, and 2026?
Your Honor, if I may request for the DBM representative to share the UA items.
All right. Yes, please. It's all right. Can you just submit to us the list of these priority programs? Are they listed as priority programs, or who categorized them as priority programs?
Your Honor, what we have here would be the list of UA purposes covered from 2016 to 2026. And one example of a priority program and project that is in the UA would be the revised AFP modernization program.
Unprogrammed. All right, but isn't AFP modernization program a long-term program?
Yes.
Yes? Of how many years?
There are phases, but I think more than 10 years. I will
Yes, so
validate.
they're quite predictable, right? They're recurring in every GAA I could ever remember.
There is a portion of the revised AFP modernization program that is part of the programmed appropriations, but to provide possible additional cover for the program, there's also an amount included in the 2024 and 2025, among others.
Because they are
unprogrammed
funded in phases, correct?
Yes,
so,
Your Honor.
for every GAA year, this item is anticipated, correct? It's not emergency, it's not urgent. It is a recurring program of the government, which obviously assumes a priority, a priority or urgent consideration by the executive and the legislature. So why did you move it to unprogrammed? When it is so programmed.
Honor, may I
Yes.
answer your question? Based on the clarification of ASEC Angel, the AFP modernization out of the recognition that it is an important program is also in the programmed appropriation, and a certain amount is also in the unprogrammed, just in case it will be added to. Now, I don't think, because of the fiscal space that limits the executive with regard to the programmed appropriations.
So what cannot be done directly insofar as the programmed appropriations are concerned can be done indirectly under the unprogrammed appropriations, which give a lot of fiscal space.
Your Honor, the unprogrammed appropriations again, because the sources of funds are not for sure to happen, and that's why we likened it to like a list of programs that are important to the government, but they can in fact live with dispensing with them if the sources of funding will not happen.
When you retain it under program funds, and because of its inclusion, a deficit is incurred by the government. Okay. Funding will be uncertain as well. But nevertheless, we have certain sources to cover these funds. Okay. So why do we have to move it to unprogrammed funds when the funds are also uncertain?
Your Honor, since, in fact, even before the 1987 Constitution, so our executive has always included in their in the NEP the unprogrammed appropriations, and I think based on the presentation of our amici that it provided some kind of flexibility to our executive department, and the reason why I add that is since the power of the purse has been lodged in the Congress and the planning and the execution are lodged in the executive, the targets or objectives of how they can perform with limited fiscal space would be given a lot of deference as well because of their many years of doing their job of the planning, legislation, and the execution of the budget, which is the contemporaneous construction of their power under the Constitution.
I agree, but only if it is untainted with grave abuse of discretion, not if it breeds corruption or bad governance.
Yes, Your Honor, it is our humble submission that, in fact, the vulnerability to corruption is not unique to the unprogrammed appropriations. It could also happen in programmed appropriations.
Correct, but it is enhanced. It is enhanced. All right. So, you maintain that there were certain criteria used by the legislature in shifting certain items from programmed to unprogrammed appropriation. Okay? And a court correct? Yes?
Yes, Your Honor, although I do not have the information because we thought that
In general, correct?
Yes, Your
it goes
Honor.
to the wisdom, but it is also the duty of the government to lead us to the wisdom that led to this decision. Because that is a big consideration for the court to resolve this case in accordance with the Constitution. So, as I said before, the invocation of wisdom is not its own excuse for being. It is not a magic wand that once it is flushed, the court will automatically desist from reviewing the issues at hand. All right, so it is
Correct.
but fair for the Filipino people to be apprised of how this wisdom is exercised and how it came about. Okay, for example, the share of local government units in the collection of special privilege tax was categorized under programmed appropriations in the 2016 and 2017 GAAs. But under the 2024 and 2025 GAAs, it was shifted to the category of unprogrammed appropriations. What standards were used by Congress for doing so?
Would you like to?
For the prior year LGU shares, Your Honor, in 2024 and 2025, the amounts were included in the unprogrammed appropriations because there is a need to certify the availability of such amount and that such amount certified be reconciled with the Bureau of Internal Revenue. So without such reconciliation...
Yes, that is the reason. You just want to reconcile the figures.
At the time of the preparation of the NEP,
Yes.
the reconciliation has not yet been
Correct, but
completed.
it's just reconciliation. It's a mathematical computation. That is the wisdom. Because you have yet to compute, or you have to make the numbers
Without such
tally.
Without such reconciliation, Madam Chair, the executive placed the
Can we not
amount
have a
in the
more
unprogrammed.
substantive reason? I always believe that wisdom bears substantive reason, not mathematical reason alone. All right, let me go to the AFP modernization. Okay, under the NEP for the 2024 GAA, the President proposed the whole amount of 50 billion for this item. But Congress split this amount by assigning 40 billion under programmed appropriations and 10 billion under unprogrammed appropriations. Madam Solicitor General, please lead us to the wisdom underlying the splitting of this item under two different categories of appropriation.
Your Honor, I do not have the reason of Congress in splitting it, Your Honor. It is our understanding that when we refer to the wisdom, we do not mean that the conclusion can be considered as wise, or can be considered as correct, or can be considered as sound. But when we say that that the judiciary differs to the wisdom of a co-equal branch, then whatever considerations becomes an issue that will be dependent on their standards. And so that's why even if we all agree that certain choices have been unsound, it's our position that it is not the issue that we are trying to give an answer
It's
to.
always an issue, wisdom. That's why we say untainted with grave abuse of discretion. When wisdom is invoked by word alone, by lip service, but the substantial part of it is unwise, then it is not wisdom. All right. So you invoke, Madam okay, your excuse. Thank you. Solicitor General, the earmarking of different sources for programmed on one hand and unprogrammed on the other. Okay. To justify, all right, the unlimited amount that may be assigned under unprogrammed appropriation. Don't you think this is a superficial distinction, without which programmed and unprogrammed appropriations are one and the same, bearing the same features, except that programmed appropriations are made subject to constitutional limitations pertaining to the ceiling amount, while unprogrammed appropriations are made exempt from these limitations. It means while programmed appropriations have a ceiling, both visible and quantifiable, in contrast, for unprogrammed appropriations, sky is the limit.
Your Honor, I would refer to the history of the budget law, and which I think is the basis also of how our wordings in the Constitution has been this way. It appears, and it is curious also to us when we were looking at the beginning of the